Okay folks, how's it going? Welcome back. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be trying to repair some holes in a hot tub cover. If you would have seen the last video that we done, we actually ended up replacing the vapor barrier on the foam cores inside of this unit. But as you can see from the top of the cover, this thing's seen better days. So stay tuned and we're going to get right into it. All right, so in order to do a project like this, we're gonna need a couple of items first. So the very first thing that I did was I picked up some marine grade vinyl. You can pick this stuff up from any fabric store, you know, maybe even just some specialty places like power sports dealers, things like that. But I found that just going to a fabric store, I was able to get some pretty decent stuff. Now, obviously what you're gonna wanna do is you wanna try to match the color to what you have as close as you can. But, you know, again, you wanna try to get it as close as you reasonably can there. So we're gonna need some fabric. And then in terms of an adhesive, what I use and I've had good success with is this LePage contact cement. This stuff does a really good job. And basically what you need to do is you need to coat the area around the hole on the hot tub cover, and then you actually coat the patch itself. Now, once you've done that, you're gonna let this stuff sit for about 15 minutes, and then you're gonna go and you're gonna apply the patch. Now, now you can get this stuff in all different sizes. I always opt to get the little tubes. And the reason being is I used to buy the bigger cans that came with a brush. And the challenge that I always had with those was I would do a couple of repairs and then I might not need to use the stuff for, you know, 2, maybe 3 months down the road. And then all of a sudden the can would be a rock and I would have just wasted that money anyway. So I found that I was much better off just buying the small tubes here. And then, yeah, I basically just use a foam brush as an applicator to make sure I can spread everything around the outside edges. And then I just take a paint roller like this after, just to put some downward pressure on the repair, just to make sure everything sets. Now, as the name states, contact cement, okay? Once that stuff is dry to the touch and you place it on, you're not moving it. You only get one shot. Okay, so you gotta be relatively precise in your placement here, okay? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 spots that we're gonna be doing repairs to today. And again, a lot of these were caused just by the freeze and thaw cycles in the wintertime. I'd get some buildup. I'd want to try to scrape all the ice off, and I got a little too aggressive with the shovel on here, and then this is what happened. Again, you want to make sure you're keeping this cover in good shape because this is the last line of defense before it gets through to your vapor barrier here. Okay, so with that said, let's get into it. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just kind of size up some of my holes here, and then I'm just gonna start cutting patches to the appropriate size. So I'll maybe start with the little one up here. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. And what I typically do is I just place the material over and get a rough idea for how big I'm gonna have to cut that patch or that repair. So for that small one, looks like I probably won't need too much here. Okay, perfect. And I just mock that up. And of course you want to make sure you've got some good overhang around the edges. That looks perfect. Okay, so there's one. Now the goal is, it's pretty windy out here today. I hope none of these blow away on me. Okay, so there's one. Now this one here is a pretty big one. So I think I'm going to be pretty liberal with how I set this patch up. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this one in half and then try to curve it a little bit. So again, I'm just gonna line myself up here like so, take a look underneath, and yeah, if I go to about here, I think I'm gonna be okay. So let's start cutting that. And if we're looking in terms of what the cost is to actually do a repair like this, it's very reasonable. I think for that small size contact cement, I think I ended up paying around $6 for the tube. The marine grade vinyl is going to probably be your most expensive component, but even that isn't too terribly expensive. You're buying this stuff usually by the yard or like the lineal foot, okay? So again, I don't think it was too terribly expensive. I think I have the receipt somewhere, but I think I paid probably around 15 or 20 bucks for the amount that I've got here. Okay, looks like I've got that area covered. I'm gonna try to round this edge a little bit here. Again, just trying to follow the contours of what's here already. Okay, and I'm actually going to taper this one a bit again. I don't think I need to have it that big. So let's taper this one a bit. Awesome. Okay, that's a big one done. Okay. All right, we'll add that to the collection here. Now, it's always a good idea to keep these scrap pieces because you may not even need to cut another one. Could probably repurpose this somewhere else. Okay, so for this one, and again, just making sure I've got good coverage kind of all the way around here. Yep, that looks perfect there. Okay, so if I cut this one right about there, that should be good. Okay, so for this one, and yeah, it's always a good idea just to prep the surface. I gave this whole area a good wipe down where I was going to be doing each of these repairs already. So that's just something to keep in mind. The better you prep the surface, likely the better or the more longer term the repair is actually going to be. Okay, so for this one, we're going to go about that big. And for cutting, again, I just make sure I've got a pretty good sharp pair of scissors. You may have a better way to cut the material, but again, this is getting it done for me here. Perfect, and I got that whole area covered. Okay, so now comes the next part here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop out my contact cement, and I'm just gonna start coating the areas around where the patch is gonna go. Now again, once you apply this stuff, you're gonna wanna let it sit for 15 minutes, okay? And again, by letting it sit for 15 minutes, it dries and you're gonna get the best curing that you can out of the stuff here. So let me just grab my pieces here. All right, and you always gotta pierce the seal in here. So you take the opposite end of the cap, push it on there, and now the contact cement's ready to go. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my first patch, and again, this is just gonna give me an idea roughly how much I've got to coat. If you go outside the edges a little bit, it's not too bad, but again, we don't want to be making a big mess either. So I'm gonna just go and start coating around here. I'm gonna wipe the excess actually onto the patch here. Okay, just like that. Okay, and in the meantime, I'm just gonna cap this back up. And then yeah, I just use a foam brush essentially, and I just spread that evenly all over the patch. And of course, you may need some more, so don't, again, you can be a little bit liberal with this stuff here. Making sure you got enough that you're covering the whole patch. There we go. Yeah, that's looking better. Excellent. And then same thing, I'm just gonna give this a little touch up over here. Make sure I've got the edges nice and uniform. Awesome, okay. All right, so I'm keeping an eye on the time here. So 15 minutes, I'm just gonna pop that fella up there, hoping that the wind's not gonna take it away. Famous last words. Okay, now the big one here that we've contoured. All right, so for this one, we're gonna get to go to town a little bit. There's a lot of surface area to cover here. So, try to trace myself out a little perimeter first here. All the way around where the repair is gonna go. There we go. Let's get a nice pattern going here. Awesome. Okay. And then yeah, just like before here, gonna take my brush and just kind of evenly distribute this stuff. Making sure that I'm covering that whole area where the repair is gonna be as best as I can. And same thing, we want to make sure we get good coverage on the patch as well here. So I would start from the outside of the patch and then just kind of trace my way inward. That way I know I'll get a good edge seal. Because if these patches let go, that's usually where it happens, is right along the edge. And again, I just kind of keep tracing my pattern here. And there's something to keep in mind is that this material, it is going to absorb, a good amount of the adhesive as well, right? So just something to keep in mind. There we go, got that one coated up. And same thing, right? Just taking my brush, work that in, making sure I'm getting good coverage all the way throughout the patch here. And like I said, you're probably gonna have to go back and add a little bit more of this stuff after, but just making sure we're getting it, you're giving it a good coating right now. A little bit more on here. Excellent. Okay, that one's coated. Okay, so looks like we're about 4 minutes on the first one. Let's get this one done here. Same thing, just gonna trace out this perimeter first. And you can see how on the vinyl side here, right? It goes on very easy, whereas on the actual patch itself, you gotta really kind of work it in a bit, just because that fabric ends up absorbing a good portion of it here. Oh. All right, same thing here. Start off by just coating my outside edge first. Oh, nice even coat on there, and same thing, just start working that in to the fabric. Perfect. All right, and then we're gonna go and move on to our last one here. And again with this one, actually, you know what? I'm gonna trim this one up just a little bit more here. Actually, no, on second thought, I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it at this length here because I do have some cracking that's starting to happen on the perimeter there a bit. So, all right, let's get this one lined up. And then same thing, we'll get this one coated. Nice good perimeter coat here. Perfect. Okay, excellent. So now we've got basically everything coated already, which is great. So now through the miracles of movie magic, when you guys come back, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start applying the patches and rolling them on. So we'll check in with you as soon as we've hit 15 minutes on all the patches. Okay, so we're right around that 15-minute mark here. So now we're gonna go and apply our patches. I'm gonna start with one of the big ones first here. So same thing, I'm just gonna kind of position it over where I want the repair to be here. Okay, and again, I gotta make sure that I've got this right the first time, because once the stuff goes down, it's not coming back up. All right, so I kind of try to work from the center of the patch outward here, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is I've got this one down, I take my roller and I just start rolling the corners together here. And you wanna put some decent pressure on this because again, that's what's gonna help that adhesive to cure here. Okay, so we're gonna roll that one in place. And again, if you have some corners, if you have the corners and they maybe aren't adhering the way you want them to, you're just gonna have to go ahead and take a little bit more contact cement, coat both sides, and then you're gonna be good to go here. Okay, so that one's looking pretty good. Okay, now I'm gonna conquer my big one here next. Okay, let's get this one lined up. And again, trying to make sure I have it nice and centered before I put it down, just like that. Okay, and then applying pressure from the outside. Excellent. Okay, and again, just rolling those edges, making sure I'm getting a good seal all the way across. Okay, I'm gonna grab my last one over here. Let's get this one on. Same thing, just lining up the perimeter edge here. There we go. And we'll just give this one a roll here. Excellent. Okay, so now that we've got those coated, like I said, if you're noticing a little bit of adhesion issues, especially around the edges, just you're going to end up taking a little bit more contact cement, spreading it around the perimeter there, and then again just letting it dry for that 15 minutes, then putting that equal pressure down, and you will get it to tack. When you're doing bigger repairs, like some of the ones on the edges here, that's usually what you're gonna end up running into. So, folks, I hope that this was helpful. If you enjoyed the video, again, please consider giving me a subscribe, giving me a like. It really helps the channel. Also, again, if you wanna see some different reviews, if you wanna see some different, around the yard projects, some how-tos, please feel free to drop that into the comments below. All right, thank you so much, and we're gonna catch you in the next one. See you later.